like to give the word to you.
Okay. Thank you, Goda Plaum, to having me.
Sorry, Christiane. Again, the sound is very bad. Could you maybe just try to reconnect your microphone? Maybe that would help.
I try now.
Maybe in the meantime, I can just comment that all the talks I've listened to yesterday and also today were really interesting and very contentful and very insightful, and I really enjoyed to listen to other artists and theoreticians' thoughts.
So please do so.
Yeah. It was amazing and very interesting to listen also about Far East Asian philosophy and principle of image making, which I am quite in some way familiar with, because that was one of the in my late teenage, it was one of the very fascinating way how to explore like non-Western image making process, and this was something what I was very interested in. And later on, after graduating from Prague, I had deliberately I wanted to experience and have an experience of residencies in specifically in China and Japan and elsewhere as well. But it was very enriching. So yeah, I think we are back with Christiane now.
So I'm Christiane and professor and researcher in aesthetics, art, and communication science. And it's our honor to take part in this dialogue session with artist Jan Valik. Hi, Jan. And Jan Valik's artwork is centered around the visual depiction on time and space, and exploring the various forms and limitations of perception and the potential for making images. Therefore, I would like to concentrate on the transformations of his work related to urban spaces, considering image paradoxes in their figurative and abstract sense. And, well, the image could be discussed based on a significant paradigm changer concerning new spaces and times for concrete experiences. So, as an interdisciplinary approach, I propose to explore the possibility that perception remains a hypothesis for the meaning of contemporary visual culture. So, in that way, first, I would like to ask Jan Valik about his process of making an image, considering the faculty of apprehension through the senses, that is, to perceive visual, the environment through visual stimuli, specifically visual perception as the ability to see and interpret clear information from the visual spectrum. And to this definition, space and time perception is significant. So the action of visualizing is a transformation of concepts into real or mentally visible images. So one must content with two kinds of images to think about visualizing. And the first is objectively understood, graphic, photographic, plastic, or dynamic visual representation. And the second is subjective, an idea that one conceptually has of something. So in that way, Jan Valik, can you share how you go about organizing your process for making images depicting your visual perception of time and space? Do you begin with an idea or concept, or do you start with a mental representation, as the organization of this dialogue proposed as a main question? It's a very interesting question. So, do you have an example or an image of the making of to share with us and explain?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for very loaded questions. It's very dense, and I'll try to answer to the best of my abilities. All right, so it's a very loaded question, honestly. How anybody, and in this case me, how do I approach image making? There are when I was studying in Prague, I was really going through other mediums, from also developing the blackroom photography through video and so on. And it was always in the background of thinking about on images and kind of like painterly approach. Painterly approach, I mean approach where you are facing sort of blank canvas or a blank support, and basically the image is the kind of conventional image is about to be developed out of this void in a way. And that's also, as many of us know, it's kind of frightening but also exciting. It's sort of as opposed to, for example, photography, where conventional photography usually you have set a scene and it's sort of like after image. I'm very simplifying the language, but painterly process, it's something where basically you are facing blank support, and it's about this coordination of your imagination or evoking images, which includes also memory, recollection, and hence time enters subjective as well as social time, by which I mean time, shared time, may it be historical or time which we sort of objectively calculate with just a conventional method of time measuring. So all of this is already entering at the very beginning of the process. And somehow it's something for me, this intuitive part, as well as this subconscious sort of pull to some image making processes is very important. And therefore I'm trying to explore this state of immersion within the painting process. So as I mentioned, I engaged with other mediums such as photography, digital photography, and video art and performance as well. And but I realized for me it's essential this immediacy of painting medium. So therefore here it would be very nice if we can have the PDF, because I shared in this PDF. I'll just quickly describe. I'll share some phases of one particular canvas, which I developed. I think 2 years ago, or something like that, some time ago. But in these pictures, you could, and I hope we will see the sort of engaging with this uncertainty of emerging image through the mark making process. So basically it's also playing as well as trying to depict trying to recollect certain fragments and how slowly they can lead to sort of final image, which is actually for me a journey to discover this final image. So at the beginning, I don't have a clear end visual and finished painting in mind. I have to sort of discover it, and it's also in this process I have to get lost and found again and sort of dig this image. And so that's kind of an answer for the first question. And what I can do, because I have PC in front of me and iPhone as well in here, and I look at I can just share it with the camera. It would be a little bit worse, not the best quality of the image, but at least we can have some idea if we can't share the PDF at the moment. So here we go. I'll do it full screen. All right, so this is this one. Can you see where I'm pointing? The first image on the left-hand side. So basically, it's very chaotic, right? Or this is like a search for a composition where I am really not certain what is going on in a way. I'm trying, sort of playing with the spatial and psychological qualities. And as Christiane talked, time is quite essential because painting is also fascinating because it's not a measured time. It doesn't have for example, a song has 4 minutes and it kind of is a linear process. But here, with painting, it's very subjective. The time is a little bit more hidden. So here we go to the right-hand side. There is some decision making involved where I finally almost can't bear this sort of semi-abstract space. So I have to decide and push for some in a way, more figurative qualities. I'm interested in this perception where I will move just to the next process of this work. So I'm interested in these qualities and in this fluid perception where something might be evoked, but at the same time it's open-ended process. I'm quite fascinated with this, how or when and how the meaning comes to the painting, and it doesn't have to the meaning for it doesn't have to have a conceptual source in me, for example. So, for example, if I'm going, I am not the key to the image for its explanation, but I'm also interested in this shared evoke kind of recollections. So the viewer, and now going to the final image. So on the left hand side is the before finishing, and on the right hand side is the final image, where sort of it concluded this sort of psychological, elusive, ambiguous space, which is also something which interests me as well. And well, this is the final image. And the title is coincidentally, It's About Time. So the title is about time because that's also a metaphorical articulation of the process of painting, as well as sort of a common phrase. We in English many times you can hear like, finally, it's about time that something happens. So for me, it's also a comment on something like, it's about time that I went through this image making, this discovery, and finally arrived at this particular image.
So thank you, Jan, for sharing your artwork with us. And as I can see, your perception is in an active process of selecting, organizing, and interpreting information, perceiving formal patterns that enable similar aesthetic responses for individuals from different cultures. Is a psychological approach depicting time in your paintings. Thus, there can be a consensus between different cultures and worldviews in making images depicting time and spaces as we experience aesthetically your artwork. Consequently, the possible common interests, as well as the conception of space and time, independent or not from the experience of the things of the world, are represented in your artwork, as we can understand after our explanation. Well, whether the notions of space and time depend on their relations to objects or not, how can you perceive and represent the conception of space and time and make an image that is painting overcoming the traditional conceptions and cultural difference? Could you please share a painting of yourself that best represents these ideas?
Mm-hmm. Again, I would do the same thing because apparently my PDFs haven't arrived. Okay. So I will share the screen in the same way. But in the meantime, I'll also just start to answer, and then we'll move on to the image. Yes. So for me, it's quite interesting that for me, painting is an open-ended process, and as well as so many things can enter indirectly. So even though I'm not depicting something particularly specific from, let's say, outside the world, but for me, it's again the importance is this threshold where it might evoke, and it's a kind of fictive space, but at the same time it has source from lived experience. It has source from as you said, like perception, and also like reflection on what is reality and how do we perceive, and but the final image is then sort of material as well as immaterial. And I think we talked about, or it has been mentioned during the conference, this very subtle difference between what is visible and invisible, and how to make something visible. How to make something visible, and again, it's kind of fits into this evoked recollection and memory, and So I'll try to not share the. I need to move back. Sorry for this movement here and there. Like very short portfolio. You can definitely ignore the text in here. So this is. I would say that I would select this painting, for example. This is one of the recent paintings I worked on over this summer, and it's again like slightly larger piece. And you might see that I'm also playing with some borders and some space, which is psychological as well, and it creates some kind of, it has some references to external space or something to see through. In this case, it would be like painting as a portal, right? The idea of painting as a window or to some ambiguous, possibly landscape or something. But also, again, the perception of interior and exterior and these borders and thresholds is quite important. So if you'd like, feel free to ask me, and I'll try to specify. I'll try to specify again, because I'm not sure whether I'm really answering the question now.
So as I see your artworks in all its manifestations, as you have showed, define the perception and beyond this complexity of understanding the visual and mental experience regarding space and time. I see you make images with a focus on the construction of space related to time and the presence of things and humans in their historical, social, and cultural values, in opposition to the abstract and geometric principles to make an image related to your experience, perception in the social world, that is, on your everyday life. So how do you consider the perspective of your potential audience when creating your image? Do people's interpretations of your artwork match what you envisioned? Or do you have a case exhibition you participated to explain your experience? If so, could we see the paintings from that exhibition as well as you showed the last one? Wow, yes.
Right. So it's interesting to think about the audience, because, of course, always the first spectator of the work is the artist themselves, and somehow these images, once they are finished, they ideally enter the collective memory, and then they are sort of in a way ejected from the studio, and they start to live a life of their own. And this always interests me as well. But at the same time, in the process, when I'm working on some image or on some painting in my studio, I don't think about it it's not there. For me, the interest is really to discover and find something in the painting, so that kind of for myself, but as well as I'm curious about to create an experience, and create an experience for myself, and then hopefully also to others. And in terms of feedback, or basically what people, how do they relate to the paintings? Many times it's quite fascinating from which background do they come, and of course everybody subjectively comes with a different state of mind or maybe background of school of thought and so on. So the interpretation slightly varies, but this is also in line with open-endedness, which I'm kind of interested in as well. This image is an installation, is one of the installation views in my recent solo show in Vienna. And as you see, the picture on the left-hand side has a quite direct references to landscape and to sort of the composition is also again evoking some shared space in a way, like although it's heavily abstracted, but still there are some art historical references which sort of like ground the painting in the collective memory in a way. So then indirectly it also gives you the entry, you as an audience member, it gives you an entry point how to navigate and have a subjective dialogue with the work.
Yes, it's what is very interesting in this complexity of understanding the visual and mental experience regarding space and time in your artworks. In your present work, focuses on the construction of space related to time and the presence of things and humans, as we can see cultural values as essential, no? To the associations established in urban scenes, as we can add to the Hegelian spirit of time, so namely zeitgeist. And we can see in your work an analysis consider the conception as well of social space, defined by as Henri Lefebvre when establishing a social vision, no? Which is in opposition to the abstract and geometric principles, as in my experience as a designer in architecture of a Euclidean space in Cartesian philosophy to develop a relationship between the mathematical logic of space and the practical mental and social world, to depict an image of space and time. But it's in that analysis that we establish a conception, a philosophical aesthetical conception in opposition to a geometrical space for the space of everyday life. So through this classical theoretical contextualization, we can consider your artwork as a very significant depiction of everyday experience of time-space, and consequently for an aesthetic, cultural, social approach to urban visualizations. I think we can consider this visual manifestation in its various forms of realization, your artwork, as very relevant. I think Jan Valik had explained very well his work, and all my questions are fully answered. And my concern was only about your interest in asking a little bit more, but I can understand that the time is over.